back, everyone. This is another episode of Rediscovering God. We are going to delve in again to our Leaving Idolatry series. And I have a very special guest straight from the Netherlands, my friend Bart Klumpenaar. Bart, if you want to introduce yourself. But before we get started, everybody hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and give Bart and I a big thumbs up if you like this interview.
All right. So I asked Steve a couple of weeks ago if I could come on his show, share my story, because I used to be a Christian, and as people might know, it's a very hard thing to say, because as soon as you say you're a non-Christian, you don't believe in hell anymore. And that's,
right.
And that's a very tough thing. But let me start with where it all started. And I had been sick for 3-4 years. I'm not sure if the translation is correct, but Epstein-Barr.
That's right. That's across the board. Yep.
It makes you tired, really tired. I also got burned out, and so basically my life wasn't much. And then when I finally recovered a bit from that, I was confronted with the meaning of life, basically. Like, doesn't make any sense. I've been through all of this, you know.
Right.
You have seen the peaks of like, I wouldn't call it misery, but like, I was so tired, you know, you couldn't do anything, and now you can focus again on what was then out of your reach, and now the experience of these activities are almost nothing in contrast to how miserable you felt, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So
for sure.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, I asked him to come on the show. He's actually from Scotland.
Okay. Yeah.
His story, as you're delving into this, his story is very similar. He had a bad run around with COVID.
Yeah.
Same thing. He's like, you know, you get humbled a little bit, and you want to know the truth, and you know, you got nothing but time when you're sick, you know.
Yeah. But I wasn't able to get into the meaning of life, because you had this sickness. So I was only after the sickness that I was able to more focus on that.
Right.
And then I came to the conclusion, there must be meaning to life. And I was raised up as a Christian, didn't really do much with it, but I came to the conclusion God exists. So I started reading the Bible, and I was like, not gonna read the Old Testament. Nah, I know these stories, not interested. just go straight to the, you know, the good stuff. And well, I can give you all the details, but basically I believe Jesus died for me. I believed I became a new creature. I was a new creature mentally. Comment on that. Hey, I know these experiences are not only to Christianity, but back then I believed that the experience of Christianity was the most real, because you were reborn, and because of that, hell, you know, like all the other religions had these experiences, but hell was out of it. So hell was very real in my belief, because
and that's very common. That's very common in Christianity, is the desire not to go to hell in most cases outweighs the desire to go to heaven, right? So
Yeah. So the choice was quite simple, but I there was this part of my brain which couldn't commit to this truth
Right.
because it was like I was born with a problem
Right.
that God fixes, and I have to be eternally grateful for that. Like,
Right. And there's nothing I can do about it. So
yeah,
as you know, my channel focuses in on spiritual abuse very often. So
yeah,
I mean, subconsciously, you're saying things here that just prove the point that, the whole Christian agenda is just this abusive machine to, one, remove you of your identity, and two, tell you had a debt that you never actually had, right? And it's all out of fear of eternal damnation.
yeah,
So as
yeah,
we can see here, it's at its core, it's abuse, right?
yeah,
So yeah, go
yeah.
on.
And yeah, like I remember the moment exactly where I told my grandmother at the time, I don't know much, but the only thing I do know, I do not want to go to hell.
Mhm.
I like, and based on that, I it already sickens me a bit talking about it. So
Right, and I mean
yeah,
that exact reasoning right there is why it's such an attractive faith. That's
of course, yeah, because it yeah, I will come back to that later. But so basically, I didn't have a church. I didn't have friends that were, well, I did have one or two friends that were Christian, but didn't speak to them. I was sick. I couldn't meet them, you know. So long story short, I met up with a pastor, and it was it's very tiny church, which was like a daughter of a bigger church where I
mhm.
grew up from. So I had a sort of connection to it. And basically what this church was it was in the middle of um, a a place in my town where a lot of immigrants live, Muslims, low income,
Okay.
refugees, and that church was used by the bigger churches to attract people to the gospel, basically.
Right. In
And
the
they
in
were,
the less desirable parts of town.
yeah, definitely, yeah. And so I went there, and I was looking for God, you know, like I need to know what's the purpose, what's. I had very existential questions. I wasn't looking for, you know, what's wrong with me? No, nothing of the sort. Like I, where when I was sick, I had this extremely elevated experience. I used to do a lot of cannabis oil medicinally, but it went to an addiction sort of,
Hmm.
and that gives you a sense of life. Um, um, I don't know. It's sort of utopian. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Euphoria. Yeah.
yeah. And once you have that feeling, you take that with you in the way you view life.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, you can look into a lot of uh there's a lot of scholarship on this, a lot of studies on this of drug
yeah.
use in the ancient world and how they really, I mean, do I buy into a lot of it? No, but I mean, there's scholars who purport that a lot of the religious experiences in the ancient world were induced by substances.
Oh,
So
yeah. And so when I went to church, I was always looking for, okay, what do I need to do? What's yeah, what does God want from me? What
mhm,
I wasn't looking for what's wrong with me,
right.
because I was like, God put me here. I didn't put myself here. So I don't know. I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And but during the same time, I met this girl, and I'm not gonna dig too deep into her, because I'm gonna share this video with people around me. But basically, she was from a strict church.
Mm-hmm.
She believed a very inherited sin was very strong in her belief. You need to believe, but you can't. But you still need to, but you can't. But you still need to try, but you can't. Like that's
That's
it tears up the soul.
trying to think of what part of Reformed theology that is.
Limited, no, not limited atonement.
Not limited atonement. That's
It
election of the saints, basically, or
yeah.
predestination around
yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, it basically comes down to the election, where she believed that if she was chosen, she would go to heaven. She wasn't chosen, go to hell by God's choice.
Yeah.
So God,
predestination. Yeah.
yeah. But like, there is something called predestination and double predestination, because if you say the single one is sometimes explained as God chooses certain people to go to heaven, but not everybody else goes to hell. So a certain amount goes to heaven, and the others can pick or choose.
Right.
And you have double predestination, where God has ordained before the beginnings of the in the book of life.
That's the Augustinian version, I think. Double predestination. That very very much in Luther and Calvin's theology.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to think of what the opposite of it is.
The opposite of election?
So there's like so you have election, and then like it's like predestined election, but then you also have the torment side of it too, like predestined torment, pretty much.
Yeah.
Once again, this is stuff we covered in the spiritual abuse series with my good friend Dan, so you can see it practically to everyone who might be watching this video. We aren't just pulling stuff out of our rear end here.
Oh, for sure. Like,
these are things that are weighing down on Christians for the generations,
What? I will come back on that. So we started to develop a relationship, like a love relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And but life wasn't easy for me. I was still recovering from my years and years of sickness, and she had her own backpack, if you want to call it like that. But a lot of it came down on me. So I had to take care of her in certain ways, and she took care of me in certain ways. So let's just say a lot happened based on religious views that have ruined. It drained me. That's basically it. It drained me. It's so tiring to live with those ideas in your head, to constantly wake up with the idea God gives me another day. I am so bad in his sight because I sin. How if I die in, let's say, an hour, how will I be righteous in front of God? That's something that's constantly in the brain of a lot of those. So there was a time I asked her to marry me, and maybe you're like, why would you ask her to marry you if it wasn't if we weren't on the same page. That's because I believed in the story of Hosea. If people are familiar with the story of Hosea, she basically believed we couldn't marry until we believed the same dogmas on Christianity. I had to believe in original sin. I had to believe in election. That's
for sure, yeah, and that's a Pauline idea. It comes from Corinthians, I believe, that believers in relationships shouldn't be unequally yoked.
Yeah.
So
absolutely, yeah. So on that, made sense. But I wanted to marry her. I really felt God put her on my path. So if I needed to serve her, if that was God's intention, I will serve her. And so I dug into the story of Hosea, and I was like, huh? If God told Hosea to marry an unequally yoked woman, does that mean Hosea sinned under the command of God? Or what's going on? Like that there's something wrong. So there you see the itching of Old and New Testament. And but during our relationship, hey, you speak about stuff, you read stuff. But I was already listening to rabbis like Manis Friedman, like so heaven and hell was already getting mystified and
yeah, it wasn't the clean cut Christian idea like you were used to, right?
Yeah, and that was an epiphany. Like when I started listening to Manis Friedman, Tovia Singer, Michael Skoback, your channel came in. What else channels? Luann.
Oh yeah, In the Light with Luann Hunt.
Yeah. She's quite recent, but I think Manis Friedman and Tovia Singer. Michael Skoback a little bit less because he has these long sermons that are sometimes too long. And but
to not talk, I'm sure, right?
Yeah. Ordered the books from Tovia Singer, and I just went ham on those videos. And like when I heard your testimony. What was it? A couple of weeks ago?
Right. Yeah, I did the first one a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
And you shared it like when you heard the first video from Tovia Singer, watch them all. Yeah, and that basically changed everything. Like
yeah, and my reasoning was totally different than most. Mine was from an apologetic standpoint. I wanted to prove this dude wrong.
Like Benyenu, the what's that woman called?
Oh yes, Shannon. Yeah, Shannon Newsom.
Yeah. She basically went the same with Yeah, I find it quite that part of your story is quite intriguing. Yeah. You go in there with a spear and you come back with with that.
Right, and that's why sincerity and honesty is so important.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but that's what do you mean with sincerity and honesty? Like,
for example, I could have gone in there wanting to beat him, wanting to argue with his standpoints, and I'm sure I could have found 1,000 rationalizations. I mean, false ones, of course, but I'm sure I could have found something if my mind was made up and my heart was so hard that I really wasn't digging for the truth. Do you know what I mean? Like, does that make sense? Yeah. If I didn't go into it sincerely for a reason, like I'm going to prove Christianity against his claim, but rather it could have just simply been, well, I'm just gonna prove him wrong for the sake of proving him wrong.
Yeah, but I think I get your point. Like you could try, but
Right.
then again,
I just think in everything you have to be sincere, because
yeah,
a lot of the arguments you see, a lot of the current apologetics aren't sincere. I could have simply
they're
said, "Oh, the rabbis made it up," and just left it at that. You know.
okay, gotcha. Yeah, but well, I mean, you were not proving his wrong then by using scripture. So you
Exactly, and that's what a lot of it is. If you're willing to just simply buy into a conspiracy theory, and that's how you disprove any claim made by
yeah.
a rabbi, is, oh well, the Orthodox rabbis corrupted the text and made it up. Well, then that's not an apologetic. That's
Yeah,
a conspiracy theory.
or you can go to the. I'm not sure if Jesus says it himself, or maybe the letters of John, or even others. Children of the devil, ears. They don't have ears to hear, or their hearts are hardened and they have been
Veil over their
blinded.
eyes.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So those texts. When I was listening to the rabbis, I don't know. I just listened to them, and I was like, when I was listening to Manus Friedman, I was like, okay, he's saying this, and it is true, but where's Jesus? Like I was still in the process of okay, cool, but where's Jesus? Where and um, so I think you have to experience something in
Mm-hmm.
order for those statues, the veil and stuff like that, to crumble, because you see a normal functioning human being telling these truths. You
Yep.
don't see a mentally incapable person.
Right.
Like
Right.
and when you listen to what the New Testament says, it says children of the devil.
Mm-hmm.
When you preach that from the church, children's, it's very intense. But
Yeah. Oh yeah.
try speak to a Jew face to face, and you're like, is this a child from the devil?
Right.
You know?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Like a lot of people don't interact with Jews, so it's very easy to keep up that scheme.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure, definitely.
Yeah. Hey, just like I said, once you start watching Tovia Singer, reading his books, that's all it is. I can give 1,000 examples why I deconverted, but I deconverted. Yeah, that's
Came home. As we like to say on our Divine Code series, is everyone's a Noahide. It just depends if you're doing it right or not.
yeah. So yeah. That sounds cultish. It's sounds well. I do get what you're saying. Yeah, but it's very, like, some people don't even want to speak to me anymore because my deconversion. Like uh,
Right.
yeah,
And I mean, what does that say for the religion they subscribe to, much less their own character? Because I don't really believe that these people are bad people. For anyone
no, for
out
sure.
For anyone
Yeah.
out there who comes on my channel and thinks I just hate every Christian, it's not the case. I just see what systemically the Christian faith does to people.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it breaks up families when someone isn't when someone deconverts. It ruins families, it ruins friendships, it ruins all these things. And for what?
Yeah.
You know, for
I mean,
what?
it ruined me, basically. I lost my girlfriend. Yeah. Yeah. And once you see what it does, but I only think you can see what it does once you cleanse yourself completely from those ideas,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
It's
you
certainly I can't lie, but when like anything, the process takes time.
For sure. Yeah.
Initially, you have like the 4 or 5 things that convinced you to leave. Whatever everyone's verse or argument or fallacy discrepancy is, there's that thing that pushes you out. But you still have all the leftover ideas and the attitudes and the self-esteem issues and all this that you are left with from Christianity. For example, I had left probably close to 2.5, 3 years before I even started this channel. So it took me some time and some study to really rewash my mind with Torah and with the truths in Tanakh rather than the New Testament, of course. It took some time to be able to, like I said, cleanse my mind and feel comfortable enough with myself, because that's, in my opinion, that is the biggest abusive behavior and tactic that Christianity uses, is taking away your self-worth, taking away your identity, and filling you with shame. There's nothing I can do to help myself. And when you are presented with such a low self-esteem, and there are Christians that have self-esteem, but realistically, at the end of the day, they do not believe that their destiny is in their own hands, right? You can only be called by the Spirit,
Yeah. Like, when my self-esteem was this, it was easy to believe. It was
Exactly.
Yeah. But then again, the counter argument to that, because I do quite a lot of counter-missionary work in my surroundings, or at least engage in these conversations. They say you have grown. What's the opposite of low self-esteem?
Prideful.
Prideful. Prideful in your own works, in your own. Do not trust in your own blah blah blah. It's in Proverbs.
Do not lean upon your own understanding.
Yes, that one. Yeah. So there is a counter argument to that.
Right,
that statement.
But it's a counter argument that even the New Testament disagrees with. It just depends on which book you're reading.
That is actually true. Yeah.
For example, Pauline theology. Pauline preaches works and not works. He preaches faith and works to different people. James, very much about works. Hebrews, very much about faith.
Luther tried to remove the book of James, right?
Because it's too Jewish. I'm not going to say that James is a holy book or anything like that, but James was an Ebionite. He was a Jewish Christian. So a lot of the brand of Christianity purported in the book of James is radically opposed to Pauline theology. So
you just said Pauline theology. Are we talking about in the first acknowledged 7 letters contradicting each other, or the 7 letters contradicting the letters that come after that with works and faith and
Right. I mean, I do believe there are contradictions in the undisputed letters too.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't dug that deep yet. I did a study on Isaiah 53 the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that was one of the reasons I asked you to do this video with me, because.
Yeah, we can talk about that for the last few minutes.
That'd be good. Yeah. Maybe you can cut certain bits of the video.
No, it'll be all right.
Okay.
Perfectly fine. Yep.
And so, quote me if I'm interrupt me if I'm wrong, but Isaiah 53, is that one of the most important? Is that the most important part of the Tanakh for the Christian faith?
Certainly up there. I'd put it in the top 3. Definitely.
Yeah. Because everyone who's gonna say his teachings, sufferings, dying, and resurrection.
I mean, for example, your standard. I only know this from having been a minister, but
Oh yeah.
your standard reading to go along with the Eucharist is Isaiah 53. So every time a Christian takes communion, in most cases, Isaiah 53 is quoted.
And the Eucharist is eating bread
Right.
and
The ritual
wine.
cannibalism, yeah, the bread and wine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ritual canon. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, if you're, I would say
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I'd say it might even be the most important prophecy that Christians. Yeah.
I think it is, because if you read the story of the Ethiopian, which I think one of the apostles is getting teleported to, and Philip, yeah. That guy is reading a scroll of Isaiah, and Philip is explaining that it's about Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote a paper on it a week ago, where I was investigating. Okay, is this really about Jesus? Because as an ex-Christian, that passage is still a very scary part, because if you read it through Christian eyes, you see Jesus 99%.
Yep.
Yeah, and so I wanted to share this to the people that are watching this channel. Are you okay with me quoting verses?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
No problem, man.
Okay. So, are you going to show this on the screen? What's going to be?
I certainly can.
Okay. So, so then I can quote the verses.
I mean, if you have it up on your screen, you could try sharing your screen. But if you don't want to do that,
it's in Dutch.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I'll just put them up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I did a study to Isaiah 53, and especially the servant, which let's assume it is Jesus. Assume. So
yeah, we'll concede the point. Yeah, we'll even give that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it is Jesus. If you go to Isaiah 41. In verse 8, it says, I'm going to try and translate it, but thee, Israel, my servant, thee, Jacob, whom I have chosen. And the only thing I can say, the servant, Israel, the people of Israel. But then again, Christian apologists say, yeah, but that servant is the people of Israel. And
Right.
they'll
try to quote Isaiah 49 and say that there's two servants.
Oh, okay. Because what does it say in Isaiah 49?
So Isaiah 49 is saying that the servant Israel, the remnant, is going to be the catalyst that redeems Jacob, the rest of the nation, right?
I see. Yeah.
So while there are two servants, in theory, it's one nation. But it's the righteous of Israel that redeems the rest of the nation, Jacob.
Yeah. Even Isaiah calls himself a servant later on. So, explicitly. Then, if you go to Isaiah 43 in verse 10, it says, I do not know the translated word, but it's like thy people are my witnesses.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Says the Lord, and my servant whom I have chosen.
Yep.
And the problem with this, it uses both plural and singular in the one sentence.
Yep.
and that started to cause like a persuasive movement inside of me, because it says in verse 11 in 43, I am the Lord, and there is no Savior but me. Yeah, like, and if the servant is Jesus,
right, it all
how
starts to fall
can
apart.
God say there is no salvation outside of me? I am the Savior. And he's talking about the servant. Isn't the servant supposed to
Right.
be the Savior?
Doesn't make sense, does it? If the servant is the Savior, how is God the Savior?
I know,
And
yeah.
how God or the servant not the same thing, right? So
Yeah. Like the gears are already. So
Mhm.
I kept on reading. I was like, okay, Isaiah 44. O Jacob and Israel, thy are my servant.
You see, but do you see how in 49, how I was talking about how the servant, Isaiah, right, is then
Yeah.
having to address the servant Israel, the remnant, but you see how there's that distinction there? How there's Israel and Jacob.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Israel is the remnant, right? And Jacob is the rest of the people. And Israel will be the catalyst. The righteous will be how the whole nation is redeemed, right? So
I think you're talking about.
that was in 49 we were talking about.
Yeah,
But
49,
you
3 to
see it leading
7.
up,
Yeah.
though, is that you have Israel and Jacob over and over and over again.
Right. Yeah. So
Right.
I always find it funny what Tovia Singer says. If you're reading 53, does that mean you have read, well, not 1 to 52, but
Right.
at least something
At least something before.
prior?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It always. I always need to laugh when he says that.
But if you would have read the Isaiah scroll a month after it was written, when there was no chapters, no verses, you wouldn't have a choice but to start from the beginning.
I
So,
know. So yeah, and that's also part of what came out of my investigation. If that guy has read the entire scroll, he should have known Israel the servant,
yeah.
Jacob the servant, Israel the servant, plural, singular, Israel,
Hmm.
Jacob, my chosen. So the story could have never happened the way it was described in Acts. I think it's Acts, right? The story of the Ethiopian.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And okay, so I was. Oh yeah. Another thing that was special about the 49-bit. They are my servant Israel, through who I will be glorified. I think that's
Lift raised up. Yep.
yeah. Verse 3, and I was like, okay. This can still be Jesus, but if we read,
It's a bit schizophrenic if it's Jesus, though, because
yeah,
by myself, am I going to be raised up? Yeah.
like it says in 49, does it say Israel as a servant? No, right?
Oh yeah. In
Oh,
49,
really?
it
Yeah.
definitely does.
Oh, yeah. Oh, of course. In verse 3, thy are my servant Israel.
In
Like,
whom I will be raised up. Yeah.
yeah. Brain fart. Yeah. So I was like, how on earth could that be Jesus? It can't. It just can't. And I kept on reading, and then you get to the part where it says,
Oh, but there's always the. I'll play devil's advocate for a second, and you
cool.
actually already addressed it without even knowing it. a lot of Christian apologists will say, well, only Jesus is the righteous remnant of Israel. They'll concede that it's Israel, but they'll say only Jesus is the righteous remnant. Well, then why is witnesses plural?
Yeah. But that's the cool thing about Old English and Old Dutch. You can make it very. Yeah. Do you have a King James where it's very Old English?
Yeah, that's
sometimes.
The denomination I came from was King James only. So.
Oh, great people. And, yeah. So in that language, you can make the distinction between singular and plural. You can make it very no, it's singular. No, it's plural. You can, at least in Dutch, you can do that. And in verse 6, you see, I gave you two to a light of the nations. And I was like, okay, so the servant Israel is a light to the nations.
Yep.
And well, that was conclusion 95%.
Right, and if God gives Israel the charge that your purpose is to be a light unto the nations, or Lagoyim, then how in the world are the followers of Jesus the light to the world? If the servant is Israel, right?
Yeah.
If the servant is Jesus, then how is he and his followers the light, right? So.
Yeah, because then you get the believing Gentiles to be a light to the unbelieving Gentiles, and that it doesn't say that, but
right.
Yeah.
Right. If Christianity is the religion of the nations, it's meant to be of the nations, then how are the nations a light to the nations? That's, it's completely circular reasoning.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And then we get to the last part, and that's I always try to think of Zechariah 8:23 when I look at the Jewish people and stuff like that. So we still have the issue of Isaiah 53 going about Jesus. And you can say, no, it's the people of Israel, but you can sort of say, no, Isaiah 53, that's Jesus.
Right.
I mean, I can't say anything against it with the stuff we have read so far.
Here's something that this is a lesser known apologetic, I guess, but initially 53, the introduction to 53 is the end of 52, right?
Yeah.
And we know it's the kings of the nations that are speaking. You have to know who's speaking, right?
Yeah.
53 is actually what would that be called? An aside, a soliloquy, when one person is speaking. Regardless, an aside, I guess that would be a monologue. It's a monologue by the kings of nations, okay? But I want to say it's Isaiah 41, it outright says, the nations will be astonished at you, speaking to the servant.
So 41, you say?
I'm almost positive it's 41. It's around there somewhere.
Okay, because
if I'm wrong, correct me, but I'm pretty sure it's in 41. Okay. Speaking to the servant, it says the nations will be astonished at you. Then you get to 52, and this is now the monologue of what the astonishment of the nations is. So.
Oh, I did not know. Okay. Because when I listen to Tobias Singer, he always says that nations will shut their mouth because of him. Mm-hmm. And I could not find the phrase in 53. So
it's in 52. It's the last. So if you go to 52:13.
Yeah.
Kings will shut their mouths at him. Kings will be astonished at him. But it's also in 41 too, that the nations will be astonished at my servant. At the redemption of my servant.
It's 15. Yes, the kings will keep their mouth because of him. Yeah, it's 15. Yeah. But then there is something that convinced me absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, let me see. Isaiah 53, verse 8.
Okay.
And I'm gonna try to translate it. He is taken away out from fear and justice, and who will speak of his age? Because he was cut off from the land of the living. Because of the transgressions of my people, he was punished.
That's about as close as you're going to get. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And in English it says he was taken from prison, from judgment, and who shall declare his generation? For he was cut off out of the land of the living. For the transgression of my people was he stricken. That's King James. Okay, and he was stricken, and that's Jesus. However, if you go to BibleHub.com, this is a Christian website, correct?
Yep.
Okay, and you go to Isaiah 53:8, and you look up the Hebrew, it says Lamo.
Yep.
Are you familiar with Lamo means? If you're reading it on Bible Hub, you think Lamo means he.
Nope.
That's an issue. That's a problem. Because Lamo means them.
It's plural. Yep.
Lamo is plural. If you go to Isaiah 48 and check up the Hebrew, you will see Lamo. It says for them.
Yep.
Or them, depending on what you want to do with it.
Yep.
So the correct translation of Isaiah 53 should be, I wrote it down. I'm gonna improvise. He was taken from prison and from judgment, and who shall declare his generation? For he was cut off out of the land of the living. For the transgressions of my people, they were stricken.
Yep. And that's all you need to say.
And that's all you need to say.
Do you know what the big one was for me in Isaiah 53?
No?
So very next verse, 53:9.
Yeah.
He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, right?
Led like a lamb to the slaughter.
Pretty sure it's verse 9, the lamb to the slaughter verse. Yet there was no deceit in his mouth.
Because he did not do any injustice, nor was there deceit in his mouth.
Right. Now, if you cross-reference that with Zephaniah 3:13, it says right out. You can move this up in any Bible. I don't care which Bible it is. You can pick the KJV. It says straight out, the remnant of Israel has no deceit in their mouth. That's an ad lib. That's not exactly.
Okay. Was Zephaniah? No?
Yeah. Stand by. I'll read it verbatim.
Okay,
I don't want to.
Okay.
Okay, so while I'm looking this up, if you want to just take a second to read Isaiah 53:9.
Okay, I'm going to improvise
it. King James open.
Okay, King James, English. Isaiah 53, right? 53:9. Bible Gateway, King James, KJV. Okay. And he made his grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death, because he had done no violence, neither was any deceit in his mouth.
Are you ready? Zephaniah 3:13. The remnant of Israel shall not do iniquity, nor speak lies, nor shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth. And that's the first half of the verse. There's more to it, though. For they shall feed and lie down, and none shall make them afraid. Lambs led to slaughter, right? So.
Okay, because if I would have read those passages, I would not have made the link.
Really?
But apparently, oh yeah, apparently you did, yeah.
I mean, it's like the exact same. It's the exact same wording, pretty much. You also have very similar wording to in Jeremiah. Jeremiah refers to himself as, before my enemies, I was a lamb led to slaughter. But they don't say that's about Jesus. It also says that that the servant bears the transgressions, right? In Ezekiel 4, Ezekiel is commanded to build a small diorama on the ground of the city, and this little diorama is meant to be a metaphor for what's going to happen, right? Well, anyway, it says that the city will bear the transgressions. Is the city the Messiah? Or is it going to have to go through destruction, right? Because of the transgressions of the nations, right? So we're seeing from other passages that the exact same rhetoric is used, exact same wording, but they're applied to different things, and thereby, well, you don't see these being applied to the Messiah, right? So this is why context is so important.
Yeah. The reason why I said I wouldn't have made the link, maybe I would have made the link, but I always try to see it in an apologetical way. Like if I am like from a personal level, like everything can convince you or me,
right?
But if I engage with people trying to explain why I deconverted, and
for sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and if I use a verse, the same rhetoric, and they're like, what are you talking about?
If I actually use the Zephaniah 3:13 rather frequently, because so imagine if you actually had Zephaniah 3:13 on one side of your screen and Isaiah 53:9 on the other side, and you read at the same time, there is no deceit in your mouth. Well, who's it talking about? The remnant of Israel, right? So.
Oh, okay. So Zephaniah is speaking about the Messianic age.
Yeah, it's talking about the exact same thing. It's talking about the redemption.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Is saying the righteous remnant of Israel will have no deceit in their mouth. They won't do iniquity. They won't tell lies. Right? So it's parallel 53:9 exactly.
I get it. Yeah. I didn't have the context. I see. Okay. Yeah, that's a different one. Yeah. That's the last thing I want to say, because I think we're already a little bit over time.
Yeah, but it's all good, my man. Don't worry about it.
I made clear to someone that I don't no longer believe in Jesus, Christianity. I said New Testament, not from God, and I told her one of the reasons was that the process where God as a gardener is cutting off all the branches that carry no fruit and only leave the branches that carry fruit, and I was like, I don't see that happening. I don't see a divine process of fruits being, I just see humans with perfectly bad and good properties, and I just see humans, don't know divine creatures, and you know what she said? That's because you don't walk in the light. And that's the light of Jesus.
Right. Wow. Yeah, I know it's very tough when you're dealing with people you care about.
Yeah.
Because here's the deal. For example, with me, my grandparents were the ones that opposed it the most. They're coming around now, but at first it was because first of all, it's what they've believed in their entire lives. you know.
They are that
And
truth. Yeah.
yeah, and if they're wrong, if you challenge their reality, that means their entire life has been a lie. The last 70 years have been for naught, right? So that's one
Yeah.
aspect
Okay.
of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
But at the
Yeah.
same time, they are impressing upon their children and their grandchildren. So in their eyes, it's not just that I'm rejecting their religion, it's that I'm rejecting the core foundational beliefs and the morality they instilled in me. It's basically me saying, you raised me wrong, you know? So
Yeah.
you
But
are
that's
challenging.
okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
It's just that you, and this might not be across the board, but I definitely think it's for parents and grandparents, for people in our situation. You're really challenging, like, this is what I instilled to you as correct. You're rejecting me just as much as you're rejecting Jesus, right?
Really? Okay. So okay.
Can you see it from that psychological standpoint, though? That
it,
these are the base guidelines that I use to raise you as a person. If you're rejecting that and telling me it's wrong, well then everything that I've taught you is pointless. It's almost as if everything I did for you doesn't matter. And of
I
course, this
see.
isn't the case. This isn't the case whatsoever from how.
Yeah. 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 I was about to say because yeah. Um, the thing is, as an example, my parents. And they taught me stuff. They raised me in a certain way. Um, but when I engage with them in these conversations, I am not saying I reject you or your truth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying I read this. Can you explain to me why you
Right.
did this and this and this?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If they can't, well, that's episode two. But that's one of the tactics I think I use is to not say you're wrong, but just show me that I am wrong.
Right. Right.
And and
We
and
both
and
read the same passage and we came to a different conclusion. If you want my conclusion to be something else, prove it to me. Yeah, exactly.
uh, well, most of the time their belief system is not based on texts. No, it's based on what the group decides to be true and has written down in the catechism or other statutes
Right,
that are
right.
held.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are easier because when it says you inherited the sin, you are guilty of. I say, but the sins of the son does not die for the sins of the father, and vice versa. So that's um, yeah, but it is difficult. I still to this day I am quite astounded by the fact that I had to lose my girlfriend over this.
Yeah.
That's yeah. That has been the hardest on me, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame, man, and yeah, it really it's really a shame because I can tell you're a sweet, wonderful person who is, worried about truth. And, but at the end of the day, and
Yeah.
we've been over this, I've been over this numerous times on my channel. Um, it's something very hard, and systemically, it makes it hard for the subscriber to leave it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it really takes a really, like I said, genuine, sincere, honest personality and
Brave.
attitude, brave, 100%,
Yeah. Yeah.
courageous,
Yeah. Yeah.
and a willingness to, for example, and we'll finish it up here.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
when I went into this, and if you watched my story, I've been studying the Bible for years. Doesn't mean that my study was correct, because I was using Christian commentaries and stuff. But that's when I started to see that things were going wrong. But when you're going into your study without a preconceived, like I'm going to study it to see what I already know. Do you know what I mean? But if you're studying it to see what it has to tell you,
Yeah.
you have to study the Bible on its terms. You know what I mean? Not your own. So, and that's the difference between exegesis and eisegesis. So,
Actually, those words are actually real. I heard them once, but I was like, is that a word?
Yeah, they're real. Yep.
Okay.
Exegesis is that your reading is simply just coming straight from the text. That eisegesis is you are reading the text with a preconceived notion. You're imposing your own belief onto the text. Exegesis is the text at face value. Eisegesis is your idea imposed upon the reading of the text. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Isn't like that's only being applied to the Tanakh, right?
You can apply it to anything.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about the Bible, the whole New Testament, Jesus is basically in every 3-4 words.
Oh yeah, but I mean, you can even you can have eisegetical readings of the New Testament too. I mean, think of secular scholarship and for example, I'll this will be the last point.
Okay, yeah.
It's a big thing in scholarship right now is homosexuality in religious texts.
Yeah.
If you want to find homosexual rhetoric in the New Testament, you'll certainly find it. You can read it into it.
Okay.
You get what I mean?
Yeah. But that's yeah.
But you can do the same thing in the Tanakh too. It doesn't mean that that's what it means. But if you want to read it that way, you know, that's the difference of eisegesis between exegesis.
Yeah. While we are speaking, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. You know? Yeah.
We'll save that for episode 2, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, thank you for having me. It was quite a step for me to.
Yeah, of course.
Public.
Getting it off your chest and being willing to talk about it, being open is, I mean, it's one of the most important parts in the whole process.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's good, man. It's good, and it's going to help you heal. It's going to help you heal from the the gash that Christianity's left in you.
Yeah.
You know, it's gonna start to sew that up a bit. You know, so. And now that you have a baseline, I don't know how much Hebrew you know, but just keep learning more.
There has not been a day where I haven't listened or read or watched anything that is, yeah.
That's what it's about. That's what it's about. I mean, David is quoted so many times, "Your word have I hid in my heart that I might not sin against thee." Well, how many Christians do you really know study the Bible to the point that it's a piece of them? They can quote it off the fly, you know? So if you really want to follow that verse, then study the Tanakh like you've never studied it before, and I can guarantee you will come to the conclusion that Judaism has it right about their own Bible and Christianity doesn't.
Yeah. I think I'm already at that point. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But all right, everybody. My friend Bart, I appreciate you reaching out. And like I said, I wish you all the best. I wish God's blessings upon you, that he just continues to keep speaking to you through his words, through his Tanakh, through all the rabbis. That if I could make a suggestion, check out Rabbi Breitowitz. I think you'll really like some of his material.
Is that the? Oh yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Keep it going.
But everyone, we have a book giveaway coming up. Once we hit 1,000 subscribers, for 300 and some away. So keep hitting that subscribe button.
Oh.
I'll give more details on that when we get closer. Starting an email list and a website. So everyone who joins the email list, I'll give more information when it's up and running. I'm going to be giving away a free ebook to everyone who joins the website. That will be written by me. So just a little FYI. And some of the books that were referenced in the show today, like Rabbi Tovia Singer's 2-volume book set, in the description of the video are links to buy all these different resources, whether it be, Counter-Missionary Resources, Noachide Living Resources, Comparative Religion, all in the description of the video. But Bart, danke, and
Auf Wiedersehen.
yep,
Yeah.
and I'll see you next time. See you guys.